Hello, everyone. This is Akata again. Thank you so much for coming back to the Rose of Venus. Today, I have a very special person, Dave Kanter. He was from the Ace Force, and now he is doing galactic astrology, just to show you how vast and the variety of backgrounds we come from. And I'm not going to say anything more. We would go right to him and see how our conversations flows. Thank you, Dave. Thank you for coming.
Well, good morning, Akata. Good morning to everyone. It's a pleasure. So, this is new for me. I've never done a podcast before, so bear with me if I may sound a little off at times. But I will say that I'm a 66-year-old man, married 41 years to a wonderful woman, Levi, two grown children. I grew up in the best state in America, New Jersey. The reason I say that, it's multicultural, multi-religious. So at an early age, I was able to understand and deal with different people. I come from a family that was in a way, dysfunctional. There's two sisters and a brother. And when I was 2 years old, so 64 years ago, in the middle of the night, my father just left my mother. Here's my mother had to carry on with life and continue on. I bring that up because two major challenges I've had in my life is abandonment and anger. And it's the common thread throughout my whole life until I became spiritual, which I'll talk about that as we go along, but it was a long time in coming. I realized at a young age that I was really sharp and smart. And one event that really set the stage for the rest of my life is that oh, by the way, I was born into a Jewish family. So with Jewish family, you go to the religious school, and you normally do this on Saturdays. So one day I went to the school, and I talked to the rabbi, and I asked him a question. I can't remember the exact words, but I'll sum it up. I said, Rabbi, is religion important in the world? Yes. Is religion about love and kindness? Yes. Then why do the Catholics don't like the Jews and the Jews don't like the Muslims? And the rabbi told me something like, little child or little boy, those events you should not worry about. So to show you how headstrong I am, I went home to my mother and says, I will not go back to religious school. I will not get bar mitzvahed. And from that point in my life on, I shut myself down to all religion. So let's move forward now. At approximately the age of, in 2012, so in 2012, I was in my 50s. My youngest son, Gabriel, had a longboard accident. And on this longboard, it's like a skateboard, but larger. He was going down a mountain road at 60 miles an hour, and he fell off it. And he went headfirst into a drainage ditch. He basically cracked his skull, had TBI, was rushed to the hospital by helicopter. And when my wife and I went to that hospital in Baltimore, Maryland, one of the best in the nation, called Shock Trauma, uh, it was traumatic because the only way we can identify our son with all the injuries was through the tattoos on his body. His face was like triple the size. It's the most hard thing in life. But God, source, has a strange way of showing his hand. What happened is the hospital had a chapel. And what happened is when I went up and my wife and I identify with the tattoos, I hadn't been back in church or synagogue or anywhere else for many, many, many years. So I went down to the chapel and said, God, my son's 20 years old. What are you doing, God? Take me, take me. He has not lived his life. So while I'm downstairs, unbeknownst to me, my wife upstairs later, we compared notes. He flatlined and died 5 times. So after this happened, my niece, who lived closer to Baltimore, who was a nurse practitioner, we stayed over her house. So during this time, with him coming in and out of life, in and out of consciousness, what happened is, bear with me because this is still a little difficult 11 years later, is that night, the doctor at 5 o'clock on, I think it was July 31st, 2012, the next day, August 1st, we were going to do organ donation. We were going to pull the plug on him and do organ donations. So when we went back to my niece's house, normally I can comfort my wife since we are the best of friends first. And I couldn't. I had to go to my niece and say, please help her. I can't help her. So the next morning we went to the hospital to pull the plug on our son, and we were going to donate his organs. And when I went to the hospital, what happened is, I looked in the, I would come up to two glass partitions on the floor he was on, and he just had two nurses that took care of him because of the severity of the problems he had. His hip was shattered. His arms were broken. They had a wire shut his mouth. It was horrible. And what happened is the nurse who knew me said, "Oh, David, wait 1 minute. Gabriel wants to speak to you." And the first thing I thought was, that's the cruelest, most mean, most evil thing I ever heard in my life. So then what? So then what happened? She goes like this and says, "Come here, David." I go over and and she goes, "Lean down." I lean down to my son and he goes, "Dad, I love you." I fell on the floor crying like a baby. I couldn't believe what was happening. So now I'm going to jump forward. That day, unbeknownst to me, because this is early in the morning, that evening when this happened, I talked to my niece's mother and father, whose cousin was a preacher who preaches all around the world. Unbeknownst to me, because my son was in such bad shape, you could visit him 24/7. There was no limitations. So I didn't know the religious people were my relatives. His name was Harry and Josephine. They had gone to the hospital that night at about 2 a.m. They flew back to America and went right back into the hospital. And they were praying in about in bed. And they said there were 12-foot high angels all around his bed. And they prayed and they prayed and prayed. So needless to say, I was ecstatic and thanked Harry and Josephine for what they did to bring my son back. But that started the beginning or the opening where I kept, because I still kept my son in a hospital for, even though he semi woke up, for about another, he was there almost a month, and most patients are only there 3 to 5 days. So every morning I would go to the chapel and pray and say, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So over from 2012 to now, slowly but surely, I started becoming not religious, but spiritual. I started seeing synchronicities and events and things were happening. And where before I used to just think of life just straight from my brain, like, whether because I was of multiple jobs, I was a research analyst, I was a financial officer, a executive officer. I started opening up my heart more, which had been closed by the example I told you about my childhood, where I was afraid of being abandoned, afraid of anger. So I started opening up. And the more I opened, the more I found what I call little David, who shut himself down. And I started having conversations with little David, like, this is grown David. I got you. Don't worry about abandonment. I'm here. I'm here. Okay. We got you. We got you.
Wow, David,
Yes.
that was an experience that can change everyone. And we don't have script. I didn't know that you were going to tell us an experience so extraordinary, so emotional.
Yes.
I, I, I am lacking of words. And I can imagine you as a father to be there with your son and asking, praying, begging
Yes.
that God give you back your son.
Yes.
It seems that even as hard as life is, there is always hope as long as we believe in life. That I think with the love you have as father and for sure as your wife too, as mother, that has contributed so much for bringing him back.
Yes.
Would you mind to go a little bit deeper into
Okay.
describing as father how you go through the emotional sides and most certainly I think it will also open you up to the spiritual side in believing that is a divine up there that helping us in every moment in our life.
Sure. What I can say is a few things on that. One is that I am not your typical male father from my generation. My youngest son, the one right now, Gabriel, he was, or now he's in his 30s, and my eldest son, Junior, is also in his 30s. But what happened is that we've always shown love to each other. I'm the type father that if I saw my boys in public, I give them a hug and kiss them. Most of my male counterparts would not do that. I had no, it was easy for me to show love, tell my kids every day, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. So, with a caring, compassionate father, and the reason I was like this, and maybe I'll pass this on to other men who may be watching this, because I was abandoned by my father. And my oldest brother, 6 years older than me, checked out of life. I mean, he lived, but he was like a hermit. So I didn't have him in my life. And then my other male that I looked up to died in his 30s, my uncle. And I used to act, he was like my surrogate father. As I alluded to, that abandonment. So one thing I said to myself as I'm getting older, from my teenage years to the 20s to the 30s, because I became a father in my 30s, I said, I will not do what other men did. I would not do what my father did, what my uncles, what my grandfather, what relatives did. And I'm going to show love and compassion to my children, and I'm going to nurture them and try to do the right thing. And that is why his accident was so difficult for me, because we were so tight, we were so connected. And now I was trying to ask God, why? Why are you tearing this from my wife and I? Why? And what I've come to find out from that period in 2012 to now in 2023, it may sound kind of cheeky or cavalier, but I truly believe what I'm getting ready to say. Through great pain comes great wisdom. And it helped me get wise. It helped me open my heart to possibilities instead of my mind, which always looked at the doors of no possibilities. Like, why are you going to try something new? The old David would say, well, you may fail, so don't even try it. Well, my heart now says, no, try it. You never fail. You learn lessons. It's just you weren't meant to finish that or complete that, which we usually attribute to success. So now, whatever I do, whether it's talking to you now, whether it's walking down the street, anything I do, I try to always now look at the benefits of that, the quality. And if there was something negative, instead of before, I would look up in the sky and say, God, why? Again, again. Now I say, thank you. Thank you. I would have never learned. So I don't know if that makes sense.
My goodness. Okay. Now, I have always value you as a person that is
Well,
cheerful,
thank you.
that you are very direct, very honest in everything you say, everything you share in our group, as much as I can understand you.
Mhm.
And wow, I mean, wow, we don't really get to know the other person without a conversation like that.
Yes.
And I am so grateful. I mean, is what you share is, well, we have the our technical side of us, right? We
Mhm.
tend to use our left brain,
Mhm.
and to let
Yes.
the emotion to come out of us, the
Yes.
spiritual side to come down in us, is a long process. And
Yes.
people may not understand how hard that is to move from one side
Oh. Yes.
to other. And I can just imagine you. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think at the end, whatever outcome that is, we are in this journey, and we just need to learn how to enjoy every moment. The now
Yes.
moment, I just so
Yes.
align with. I just
Yes.
have a conversation yesterday with another person, and we were talking about our akash, our our story, some other
Mhm.
incarnation, and what we need to clear and not clear. Really doesn't matter. After we
Yes.
clear it, is the now moment. How
Mhm.
you, Dave, that now moment, honor the man in you, and also the feminine side. Because when you say you have no problem in showing your love, that is
Yep.
the divine feminine side in you.
Yes.
It takes so much courage to do that rather than the other
Yes.
way.
Yes. I do believe the reason I'm on this planet, the reason I'm here, and this has been validated by a numerous Akashic records check, is I've lived many, 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 many different lives on many, many different places. And the amazing thing is, approximately half of them was as a female. So I now realize a lot of the love and kindness and all the attributes we attribute as men as weakness, these, what I call strengths, were always in me. But as a youth, I tamped them down because of the fear of abandonment and anger. Where now I just don't care. Okay. I show what I'm about. And when people, it's funny, when people say, well, what do you do now that you're retired? I said, I be. And they said, what do you mean I be? I said, well, I'll go on my deck and for hours, I'll just stare at the trees and I'm watching the leaves flutter. I'm watching the wind go. I'm watching the birds chirp. Okay. And I'm just every moment I try to live in the moment because I cannot change the past. I cannot. The future's not here. I can hope all I want. All I can do is right now. It's like I'm talking to Akata now. You have my 1000% attention. I'm not worried about my coffee mug or my phone or rustling papers. I'm looking at you because I'm being. And I find the more I be, the happier I get.
I don't know what to say. Oh
I
my
feel so
goodness.
sad that at 66, both my wife and she's similar, we are so happy that we wake up every day happy and go to bed happy. And when we hear our relatives or friends or acquaintances just complain, I'm like, wow, I love my life. I wish everybody had my life where they're at peace. My main emotion every day is calmness and peace. Calmness and peace. And when I step out of that emotion, I try immediately to close my eyes, breathe deeply, and bring back the calm and peace. But if I can share something to to all that may be watching, some a technique that has helped me tremendously with anger issues is what I've done over the last probably 2 years is I called up every negative event that I've had in my life where I had old emotions. So let's say my father leaving. I called it up and I cried and I'm balling up in anger. But then what I do, then I release that anger and say, I turn that abandonment, right, into togetherness. I turn it into love, because then what I do, I bring up the event, I look at the video, but the audio now is thank you, Dad, because if you didn't leave, I would never have been the man I am now. And I love me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I've done that with everything I can remember in life, and even things that I've done that were not in the light, because I myself am human. I've had some darkness and I've had to make amends with that. But I bring it up and say, I'm not proud of what I did, but thank you, thank you, thank you for the lesson. Again, because it made me the man, the human being, and that I am, and I love me.
I think that is certain misunderstanding in the spiritual world, that we need to stay positive. We need to stay blissful. We need to not look at our shadow, our fear, what is considered as negatives,
Yeah.
but to embrace it, to
Yeah.
look it in the face. Your worst enemy is the
Yeah.
best,
Yeah.
most permanent solution you can ever find to release
Yeah.
yourself from
Yeah.
that fear.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my goodness, I just agree 100%. There's nothing more to say. And I really wish that anyone that try to bypass that passage of not going back to what was hurtful,
Yes.
to what was fearful, and think we just go up and up and up, one day it will not be enough. We still
Because
need to come back.
when we don't do that, what I found myself, because my wife for years would say, you hold on to things, you never let it go, and it would fester, it would boil, often. So that by doing this new way of me, like I said, over the last 2 years, what happens is I call it the wave. If a negative event happens right now, like I'm looking outside and a cat eats a bird, right? I will look at it objectively, but not hold on to the emotion. And I just let it go like a wave. Okay, let it go by, let it go by. You saw it, you put it in your brain, but you don't have to hold on to that emotion. You don't have to own it. So that's what I do with people a lot now. One of the negative things, or not negative, one of the things that I didn't understand when I was younger, but I do now, I'm an empath. And I would always wonder when I get around people, I would go from being happy like this to, and I didn't realize I was pulling in their emotions, but I didn't know how to control it. So
Mm,
instead of controlling it and tamping it down, it engulfed me. So if I'm happy, then all of a sudden I would be mad, and I get away from people, and I'd be in my little corner, and my wife would say, "What's wrong?" And I said, "I don't know, but I don't want to be around people. I don't want to talk to you." So until I took the bulls by the horn and said, "No, no, I'm in control here, not you." Until I did that, I was not free. But now I am free.
exactly. It is. Okay. I am still a little bit letting the environment, events, everyday matters that get me down. But as long as you know, at the end of the day, you are the one in charge, be all
And
right.
plus, this too shall pass. You won't stay with you permanently. It will pass. There's a lesson there, and then let it go.
Yes, yes. Oh, I'll be there. Okay. Almost there, but not so much, but be there one day. Okay, so now I ask myself, okay, if you have all this background as an Air Force, from a very superficial understanding, okay, you have
Mm-hmm.
the Air Force and you've been into all these projects, traveling and all that, how it brings you into the spiritual world. I don't know, maybe Galactic astrology is just one of the latest of you, but you know, how you come to a
That is, yes, that is easy to explain. I'm sorry, but what happened as I was as I was thinking earlier, in 1976 and 1977, I was on the island of Crete, Greece, where I was stationed with the Air Force. And one night, a friend of mine and I, around 10 o'clock, we were on the north side of the island, and we were driving on the south side of the island because, as you may know, being in Europe, a lot of things in Greece did not start partying, didn't start until about 10, and it didn't end until the last person left the taverna. So my friend and I were going there, and at the time we were single, so we were going to the other side of the island to meet our opposites. And
okay.
so what happened? So we were driving on the north side, and I remember the last thing I remember, we were near the town of Heraklion, and we were going to go to the other side of the island to a place called Matala. And it was about 10 o'clock, and the next thing I knew, my car was in a ditch. And it was a one-lane highway, one-lane road each way, and the car was in a ditch like this with the front end going up. And I remember my eyes opened first, and I tried to open the door, and I couldn't because it was on an angle. So then I went and nudged a friend of mine. Hey, get up. And where are we at? I said, I don't know. So he was a big guy. So he ended up going in the back and picking up the car because it was a French Renault and the engine was in the back. And he lifted it up. We went on the highway. So I didn't know where we were at. Now, here goes the woo-woo piece. So I turn on the road, and this is before I was religious or spiritual or anything. We make a right, and I see a sign that says Matala, 5 kilometers. So I said, oh, I know where we're at. Okay. So I'm driving, and then off in the distance, maybe 100 yards, I see something on the right side of the road. So I keep driving, and it was a standard shift. So I downshift as I'm getting closer. And in the back, I see somebody that looked like a woman because her back was sashaying back and forth. And she had on a white robe. And I could see at her wrist, it covered her wrist, and I could see the hands as I'm getting closer was black. So then as I'm getting closer, I see the person in front of her had a white robe on. It was about 10, 15 feet in front of her. So I get up near the lady. I look at her and my friend's, the passenger, and it was the blackest woman I ever seen, but with fine features. And the thing that popped in my head, that's a Nubian queen. That's a Nubian queen. So I keep driving, right? My friend is Catholic. He starts screaming, that's Jesus Christ. That's Jesus Christ. So we keep driving up, and they did not change they just looked straight ahead, like they kept walking straight. So we drove maybe about another 4 kilometers, and there's a horseshoe area, a bay in Matala, and then you have the caves of Matala up on the mountain. So immediately, this is the morning, and now I knew what time it was. We immediately go to the bar, get a couple of shots of ouzo and raki and beer, and I'm sitting there looking straight ahead as what we call Jesus and the Nubian queen are coming towards us. But then they turn off and go up towards the caves. So I'm watching them, and I go to my buddy, I'm going to go check. He says, you're on your own. So I go up to the cave, and you go in, but there's no way out. It's just in and out. There was nobody in the cave. So this is 1976. And this was in my mind for many, 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 many years. So they told me this lady's name, and I can't think of her right now. I think Deanna. That's right, Deanna. And they gave me her phone number. So I sent her an email and says, hey, I've got your name from the shop. I like to have a session. So we booked a session for the next day. So when I went there, and we've never met before, and it was funny, I felt just at home with her because her place was a single family house where she was doing sessions, and in the yard were all different type flowers. So she was running late and texted me and says, just go and make yourself comfortable on a porch. So I did. And so about 15 minutes later, she drove up, and I waved her. And I said, I feel like I've known you a long time. She says, yeah, I get the same feeling. So we went inside, we started a session. And again, she didn't know me from Adam. And she goes, David, I would never tell anybody this. Never. This is too weird for me. She says, that was a Nubian queen, and that was Jesus Christ. 2, you were part of the Essenes back then. And 3, it was a spaceship. It was a Palladian spaceship that took you up to upload information and download information to you. That began my spirituality, where I started seeking out other modalities, whether it was reading up on different subjects, which eventually led to the galactic astrology course. Every day I'm like a little boy of 5-year-old, just amazed at the wisdom of the multiverse and everything that's involved in it.
Okay, I would like to share that. A few days ago, I think you have read it in Facebook. I was sharing, I was calling the Isis, the Magdalenas, the Essenes.
Yes.
That was on the 22nd of July. There was a Magdalene Day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was retelling that story of me that last year. It was the first time ever I started to travel by myself because of my separation situation. And so I was visiting friends in the north of Italy, and then from the mountain area, and then to Verona, and then it's a round trip that I have never drove so much in my life by myself. And then I have I bought myself a second-hand car, and it's an old car. It belongs to a handicapped man, so it was like strange.
Perfect
as a
condition.
car. Yeah. And anyway, when I was in Verona with this friend of mine who I have met, I met her through others group and all that, but we have never met in person. And one day she took me to her group of spiritual church. Not even church, I cannot call it church. Okay, a temple. And they do the mediums. And since I channel myself, I wasn't really interested in mediumship. Like whatever I need, I just ask by myself. I don't need anyone. I don't need the third person. But anyway, I went there and with her, and I have this medium in front of me. Okay, she started with something, telling me something, and then she said, "Okay, now your father is very angry with you. Not angry, and now your father is asking you questions and this and that." I say, "Which father? My father
Yes.
was still alive, my physical father, biological father." And then I asked, "Is that my father from the other life, the other incarnation?" And then said, "Yes." Okay. All right. Then I understand who that father was. And this father was asking me, "Do you have faith or do you have trust?" I said, "Yes, I trust. I have faith." "How much do you have?" I said, "I have enough." There's no such thing as enough faith or enough trust. Either you have it or you don't.
Yes.
Okay. So that was my first conversation for the first time through another person with my father. And because she was a medium and she didn't remember who she was actually when I was talking to her, to that person. Anyway. And the next day I was on my way home, going through highway, and in Italy, you know, it's very narrow countries, and so we have mountains and sea, and when I was coming back, I was going through this mountain area, a lot of tunnels. At certain point, I was on the left side lane, joining with another direction. So there was like 4 or 5 lanes all together joining point. At that moment, my car slowed down all by himself.
Wow.
I was like 130 as a maximum legally to drive in highway.
Yeah.
And at certain point, I was slowed down and slowed down and slowed down. I became like, I turned to 50. Actually, as if I was walking with my car in a highway. And I was on the left side. So even if I want to stop, I have to go to the right side, right? And there was that lanes that coming from the other directions, and it's a part that's very busy road with trucks and everything. I was hearing everything, all this horn and blah blah blah. Anyway, at the last moment, I was able to move very swiftly. No one hit me. No one touched me. I was shifting from the far left to the right emergency lane.
Wow.
And what's more, my emergency lane was right in front of the entrance of a tunnel. If I didn't stop there, I would hit the tunnel.
Wow. Mm.
And all this time I was calm as water. I wasn't agitated. I was so calm. I just move along.
Yeah.
I stopped there. I turned off the engine. I closed my eyes. Breathe. Breathe, Akata. I think, well, maybe 5 minutes or more. And then I was like caressing my car. My car has a name. For me, everything is there's life in everything.
Mm-hmm.
So my car, there's a name. His name is Dear John, and has some very special meaning for me. Anyway, so I say, "Oh, dear John, I love you."
I love it. I love it.
I love you so much, and that's me, and you, nothing else. Another hour, we will be home. Come on, I know you can do it.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
I said, "No, we stay calm. Whatever happened, happened." I turned my key, and it's that. And when I was ready to go back to the main lane,
Mm-hmm.
there was nothing behind me. All of a sudden, all those trucks were not there. So even that. So I moved back to the main lane and I started driving. Everything so miraculously was okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I never took my car to the mechanic. Never.
What do you think? What do you think caused that?
I have no idea.
Was it a message from above that you had to learn something, or you had to see something, or feel something?
I relate to very much that question. Do you trust? Do you have faith? Knowing who you are.
Mm-hmm.
This physical doesn't really matter. Who are you?
Mm-hmm.
You know where you come from. Do you want to bring back wherever you are here? And so that is something that we share.
It will stay with you a long time.
It stayed, and so that was August last year, and then I shortly after that also I joined the Galactic Astrology as you with 0. And we are in a group of people that is so expert already. I
Yeah.
mean, like many are expert astrologer, and I go, oh, what I am doing here?
Yeah. I know the feeling. Like I'm like out of my league here. But I just pushed on,
Yes, yes, yes. And anyway, so and of course, challenges and initiation, as I call it, never stop, right? And we
Correct.
just get to know us better every day. And I think I can talk with you, Dave, for
Yeah.
days, for
It's
for
like
months.
it's like each of us teach, learn. You teach me, I teach you. We're always
Yes,
teach, learn, teach, learn, teach, learn. And I think that's what it's all about. Teach, learn, yin yang, yes, no, positive, negative. Find that happy medium down the middle.
yes. Okay. I think what we will do is for today we stop here. We will have another lovely chat. That much we are sure. And I still have to go to all these you with your pendulum that all these past life you see us together as friends, me
Yeah.
painting. What are you
Yeah.
talking about? Okay. So we will
Yes.
do that. We will do that.
Okay.
And would you like to close off a little bit of what you have shared
Yes, I
before
want
I
to thank
close?
you for the opportunity to have this discussion with you. It's been lovely. You're a wonderful person. I felt connected to you like numerous other people in the class. It's just something about the energy that has drawn us like-minded people into Julia's class. It's just phenomenal. Again, I thank you. What I would recommend, maybe you may want to buy a bicycle instead of a car when you go around the mountain.
I
So that is
trust.
all.
So we leave it like that. Okay.
So that's all I have.
Okay.
Namaste.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. I think that is a very, very inspiring conversation here. And the sharing is just phenomenal, emotional,
Yes.
and deep. Thank you, everyone. And I see you next time. Thank you, Dave. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.